Hi, everybody. I am very excited to be here. I think this is going to be a very exciting series of actually working with a prompting lab. Tell you a little bit about what I've been doing in Colorado and what we've been doing in Colorado with mainly generative AI. We started on this journey. It was a good 2 years ago now. ChatGPT obviously came out in November 2022, was it? Right? It was a long time ago. And as we were looking at the way we were going to bring this into the state of Colorado, we're already on the Google Suite. So we really looked at Gemini first as a environment that we already had control over, that we already managed. All our users already knew how to use it. So we were just adding functionality to that. And we felt by using that, we could really look at the potential of how AI could help us by boosting employee productivity, which has been the promise of this for the last several years. I think, we have mixed results. We have really good ones, and we have others saying that it's not working quite the way at the speed that we expected. And how does that actually transform into a constituent experience where we're helping constituents as well? So where we started was with a pilot implementation 2 years ago of Gemini. We gathered 150 people from across the state, from every agency, and we created a training program and we started experimenting. In that pilot, our users had to give us 3 use cases a week. And at the end of the pilot, we had over 2,000 use cases. Now, they would put in that use case as a text field. I drafted an email. I reviewed a document. I did this, I did that. And then we asked them 12 questions like, was it easy to use? Did you have to go to documentation? Did you save time? How much time did you save? Did you have any security concerns? And we learned a lot about how AI works and how people use it through that. And there is a link on this. I can make this available afterwards. We published our pilot white uh, case study out there. And so you can look at that if you have anything. If you have any questions for me, if you look at that, get in touch anytime. So today we are rolling out, obviously, over the last over a year now, we've been rolling out to the general employee population the use of Gemini. We have over 4,500 people who are using it today. We do demand that they do take training before they actually get permission to license. And through the training, we started creating collateral in the pilot that we're still expanding. Facts, fact sheets. We recorded all the training sessions that are still available to people that were not in the pilot so they could see them. We had open office hours. And the key that we actually went for with training was not actually prompting, which is what this series is about, but we're at that point, right? It was really about responsibility. Now, prompting was in every training session. That was part of it, but it was really about why are you doing this? How are you doing this? And is this the right thing to do? And if you do it, how can you be responsible in the way that you're actually using it? And then our OIT comms has been involved with us from the beginning, all through the pilot. And we have really expanded the information that we have for our employees. We have, we have consistent updating emails. We have chat rooms that people go to. We started with just a Gemini pilot chat room, and now we have multiple chat rooms. Some of them are agency centric, so the agency actually creates a kind of a center of excellence with some of their folks, and then they have their own private chat rooms as well. But we also have ones that are available to anyone in the state to actually talk and collaborate together. We have a community of practice every month that is also available to all employees across the state. And they can come there and we update on new tools that we're seeing, demos, use cases, legislative changes, anything that we need to talk about to actually get to a wider audience. We have hundreds of people that are in that community of practice. And that helps us, in addition to the emails and the chat rooms, of getting some of the broadcast information out to agencies and they help us actually socialize that information out there. And then, but mitigation and risk has been something that we took seriously from day one, and we continue to do that, although we are trying to make sure that we're innovating along the way. So everything is vetted. Gemini was vetted obviously through that massive pilot that we did. But we evaluate every use case that comes through for any software that anyone wants to use and come through. And it's really based on which you probably all know, human in the loop, right? Human in the middle, human in the lead, whatever human phrase you use. And then also that we're not letting AI make consequential decisions, right? Which goes back to human. Those are the key things we drive home over and over and over again, especially when something new comes up. This field is changing rapidly, but those two things have been consistent from the day we started until today, and they haven't changed. I don't see them changing anytime soon. And then lastly, Agueda put out, what would we do differently? I really like what we did, so I don't look back and go, "Oh man, we really didn't do anything right." Right? We did a lot right, but through continual improvement, which I think we're all after in everything we do, I do look back and I see some things that maybe I would have changed. We did some polling through the Gemini pilot, and we're still continuing to do that as we move forward, rolling out to more and more people across the state. Um, in the pilot, after we got the information, we're like, oh, we should have asked this before and after. We did do a poll before, but it was really high level because we didn't know what we were getting into, right? But we learned a lot. And now we have these before and after polls. They're going to be much stronger going forward. So that's one of the things I'd love to go back in time and do that. The peer-to-peer training, this happened organically when we started the pilot. We were training. And very quickly, what we learned is the best training was actually kind of a question and answer, people talking to each other. And we really evolved that. In fact, our training now across all our agencies, we do individual agency training this year. And we've already done about over half a dozen. And it's called the AI Dialogues. And it really is about having a dialogue, right? We're not going in there and just training. And I think that's one of the hopes that we have for this series is actually to have this back and forth, right? Rather than just tell you this is what you're going to learn. Let's find out what people actually need. And then the last thing is cross agency inclusion. We did have every agency in the pilot from day one, which was great. But I think we were pretty IT heavy in our pilot as well. We probably had more IT people than anyone else because they were earlier adopters and they were really excited about it moving forward. If I went back, I would make sure that we brought in more people that weren't. Uh, I don't want to say tech savvy. Just about everyone who works today is tech savvy to some degree, right? Uh, but what we found was that it when you're dealing with people from accounting, figuring out something on a spreadsheet, or something from HR, trying to figure out how to look at documents and policy and understand it. Some of those use cases were the most exciting, right? It's not the same thing. If you're in technology, you're looking at all the things that AI is doing. There's great tools out there, and they're awesome. But it's how are we getting everyday use out of this that is really creating value. And that's coming from really talking to other agencies. And it is the peer-to-peer. Those two almost go hand in hand. So that's what Colorado is. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of that, and I will pass it back to Agueda for whoever's next.
Great. Thank you so much, David. I am going to spotlight on Harrison. Give me a second. Here it is. So Harrison, what about the experience in Pennsylvania?
Perfect. Thank you. And so excited to be here, and great to hear from David and all the amazing work they're doing in Colorado. And to me, what's really exciting, just to kind of get us started with this peer-to-peer sharing and prompt lab series is this idea of getting to share this kind of learning journey that a lot of our teams, our organizations are all progressing on as it relates to AI. And, even hearing some of the things that Davyd was just mentioning, some of them were on our radar for things Colorado's done. Some of them were new, and now I'm already off like, oh, great, Davyd, going to reach out. I have some follow-up questions. So really excited that with Innovate, we're able to put on this series going forward. To give you all a little bit of just overview of our work in Pennsylvania, how we're approaching this and what we see as next. I'd say similarly, our AI journey really started over the past 2 years when generative AI was really hitting kind of everyone at the same time. It's becoming more and more popular. And in late 2023, or 2024, we had an executive order on generative AI specifically that really built a lot of the foundation work for how we'd operate as a state. This enacted both a generative AI governing board and outlined some of the key aspects of how we want to govern and implement and be responsible when navigating this technology. A big part of that approach for us was how can we think about being proactive as opposed to reactive in this moment and going forward. And right, proactive doesn't mean AI everywhere all at once. It's really about how can we be intentional about finding teams and opportunities that have high value that we can set up to succeed and explore and take those learnings and scale them, amongst our teams, our agencies, and to the public sector community, like spaces like this. Throughout 2024 and 2025, we tried to put that in practice. Most notably, we had a pilot program we did with OpenAI, where we were the first government organization to have enterprise terms with OpenAI for their ChatGPT enterprise project. We did a similar to how Davyd described their Gemini pilot, we did a targeted selection of about 175 folks in total, spanning 14 different agencies who had access to ChatGPT Enterprise for roughly 12 months, plus a little bit of extra time. And throughout that time, we did a lot of different training and workshop initiatives with those folks. And most importantly, we tried to create a really robust feedback loop of how we'd hear from people as they started to explore and engage with AI tools and systems. In total, we had just shy of 600 feedback surveys we collected from our Commonwealth staff. And this was staff that was, senior executives through a wide range of folks of different tenure and experience levels. We had union covered employees in our pilot. And so while we're never going to capture the full breadth of 80,000 Commonwealth employees, we really tried to get as large of a range as we could. A few things that were really affirmed in that work that we've continued with and built upon as we've moved forward is this idea that a lot of folks who are using these tools were finding value from them. And in some ways that was self-reported, and it can be a little hard to really get at this idea of what does it mean to be efficient or have tools that add value. But on the whole, our staff were reporting time savings and that they could see improvements in their work product when they had these tools and were given training to apply them responsibly. We also had staff who reported that a key part of doing this work and using these tools was maintaining that human in the loop aspect and really being able to leverage their own expertise to make final decisions and help move their programs or delivery forward. This piece, I think, is really essential both for the pilot, but then how do we build programs like this one here, where we're getting a lot of that peer-to-peer learning and opportunities for these kind of initial pilot groups or early users with these tools to share with each other. Beyond this pilot, as we've moved forward with Pennsylvania, we've done a lot to try to build our own internal community of practice, elevate folks who are starting to explore new tools. And we're a Microsoft shop primarily, and so I've started to expand our access of ChatGPT Enterprise, Copilot products, and a handful of other AI tools that really meet kind of bespoke needs for functional areas for different teams. Throughout all of this, we think training has been a key part, and that's been everything from live workshops to promoting some of the Innovate workshops and trainings as well. And we definitely see this prompting space as a collaborative space for not just our agencies to connect, but other teams to connect about what's working and not working and some of the resources that folks need to be successful. All in all, as we go forward and as we think of what we've learned with Pennsylvania and kind of how this technology is changing, I often like to break this moment down for us in a couple different flavors. There's what do we need to have the technical maturity to allow our IT teams and technical staff to be able to leverage AI systems in ways that are responsible and effective. And there's a lot that can be done there from kind of a deep IT technical perspective. In addition to that, there's what does our workforce need to be able to engage with these new tools and systems, some that they're choosing to use, some that pop up in the software that are already part of their day-to-day, and whether it's prompting tactics, what to be on the lookout for, how you maintain your expertise, are all things that we need to do to build the organizational readiness of our staff and workforces And there's a lot of ideas, I think, there in terms of how we can collaborate as teams. And lastly, regardless of if you have, technical teams that are deploying AI systems, you're using all the AI tools out there, or you're, taking your time and that doesn't make sense for your organization, we all still have to be leaders and know how to operate in a world where AI is happening, outside of us. Whether it's how it's introduced software or how the public that we engage with our institutions are leveraging AI, there's certain dynamics and aspects that we're going to have to be responsive to. And again, all three of those core to that is how we as staff get to engage with these systems and tools and leverage them effectively. And so while the prompting lab, I don't think is going to cover all aspects of that, really honing in on what's working and what's not working for folks at a staff level, sharing those resources, I think is a really exciting step. And so we view it as kind of a crucial part of our journey in Pennsylvania and hope others here find value as well.
Thank you so much, Harrison. So give me a sec. I am going to spotlight on Jorge. Okay, here we are. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to share screen really quickly and just kind of walk us through. Let me share the presentation. Awesome. Can everybody see this? Yay. All right. So, hi everybody. Thanks for having me, InnovateUS team. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of sort of our approach to AI and then pepper along sort of what our team is like and the responsibilities of our team along the way. So our team is responsible for innovation in AI, both here, here in our communications information technology department. So a new department is a combination of our communications and of our information technology teams. So we have a very large department of over 1,000 employees, but we are working together to make sure that AI is used and is used to benefit our residents, is used to make our work better, and ultimately as a tool in the toolbox of the public sector persona, which we'll get to in a little bit. So first and foremost, thanks for having me again. I think what we're going to talk a little bit about is sort of our team's hypothesis of AI, right? We are our innovation team is predominantly an R&D team. So we rapidly test new technologies, rapidly deploy new solutions based on a human-centered design approach, work with our teams. We understand their processes and their challenges. We find opportunities within those challenges, and then we apply technology and process engineering to hopefully make that better for the end user. Sometimes it's our employees, sometimes it's our residents, sometimes it's both. So that is our approach, right? And as we look at it through the lens of AI and through our large language models, right, we're rapidly approaching this point in the LLM journey, or this point in the AI journey, where these tools are so much more than just the interaction, the Q&A, the generate this content for me, right? These systems and these models and these solutions are starting to take actions, and they're starting to do things, and they're doing things pretty well, right? But with a little bit of input from us and a little bit of attention to detail from us, they go from good to great. So the way that we see AI is sort of as a suit of armor for the public sector employee, right? This is the Batman utility belt, so to speak, of a public sector employee, where we can say, this technology can make automate your tasks, make generating reports or generating content a little easier. And ultimately through this prompting lab, I think the goal would be to just share use cases, go hands on keyboard and validate, the work that you all are doing, and see how we can apply this new and growing technology to that work. Few guiding principles for us. So this is what we adhere to when we're developing new solutions or we're working with partners. And first and foremost, we want to create things that are governed and that can sustain themselves in a large organization. That means creating clear standards, helping our teams set standards, enabling good decision making as we navigate these new technologies. But also it includes a very robust upskilling component, a very robust knowledge component for our teams. We want to make sure that they have access to the latest trainings, to the latest resources, as InnovateUS has been a provider of many of those resources. Um, Governance is so much more than the the rules and regs of a new technology. We want to make sure that this technology is aligned. So how can this technology be aligned to, our mayor's WISE 305 initiative for efficiency in our services to our residents? How can this be aligned to our county priorities? We find that the closer we are aligned to a business challenge, or the closer that we are aligned to a resident need, the better the outcome is. So when we use these tools, we keep our residents and we keep our end users at the center of that experience. We want it to be repeatable. So we want to nail our documentation. We want to work with our teams to ensure that knowledge and innovation that's happening in one team moves to another team, moves to another team. So we're always on the lookout for our teams doing amazing work and lifting that work up across the organization. And lastly, most importantly, it's trust. We want to build solutions. We want to build applications and services that our residents trust and that work and that are transparent. So we align ourselves against the persona, right? So our persona that we're aligning ourselves to is what we call the AI-powered public servant, right? Think of the common characteristics of a public sector professional, right? They work effectively in resource constraints. We're all used to working in resource constraints. No matter how big or how small our organization is, there's always going to be a more of a demand for the services that we provide than the staff or resources needed to get the job done. Many public sector professionals wear multiple hats, right? That's the thing that everybody says. You're wearing multiple hats. There's municipalities where the public information officer is also the data person, is also the public records custodian. A lot of folks are doing a lot of different things. So how can we apply technology to be that force multiplier that can give them give them the resources and give them some time back that they can allocate to another part of their work. So ultimately, our hypothesis is if we introduce these technologies, even if it's the sort of consumer front end, chat GPTs, your Claudes, your Geminis, that can make a difference in an employee's day. That can make a difference in how quickly or how effectively a service is delivered or an application is served. And we want to leverage the immense knowledge that public sector professionals gather along their career to and marry that with an AI tool or with AI tools that could enable them to do more, not just with less, but to do new things with less, to do to embark on new different types of work or new different types of project because now they have this sort of great tool or great assistant. Much to the point of my new colleagues, right? This isn't something that you let go on its own. I like as I've illustrated here, right? We're all thinking Tony Stark, Iron Man. Inside the Iron Man suit is a person. So we very much see it that way, where there's this is a tool that our teams can use to really make a difference in their work and ultimately make a difference for our residents. And to the point of use cases, we see use cases everywhere. We receive a lot of use cases. Um, Ultimately, our ideal future state is we want to give as much self-service to our employees as possible, so that they can spin up a chat bot, they can spin up an agent. So our team is always very biased towards how much governed, secure support can we put at closest to our employees. So these are a few use cases at a very high level that we found to be very successful that we use almost every day. For example, the one that's really the most exciting for us is rapid prototyping. We we often do design sprints, human-centered design sessions with our departments, and that usually results in like a 3 or 4 day sprint. We all get together, we map out a process, we identify opportunities, and we say, okay, y'all, we're going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks with an MVP, a minimum viable product, or a list of product requirements. Now we can get from version 0 to version 0.5 of a minimal viable product in the room with the business. This is immensely helpful for us. It's lowered the cost of prototyping. It has broadened the number of people that can do it. And when we look to take that MVP from a minimum viable product to a supported product tied to a team, then the handoff isn't a set of product requirements. It's a set of product requirements and a functioning uh, application that does the first thing that we need, right? I think another one that's really critical is automation. We all have that thing that we do all the time that we always wish it could just happen automatically. A lot of these tools are enabling the the end user to automate their work, which is really exciting because, as you can imagine, right, again, with a human in the loop, that human can dictate parts of their workflow that are important to them, right? Coming back to that concept of self-service. What in my day can I automate quickly, and get some time back that can be spent in many cases with our residents? I think immediately of social service programs. If we can free up the frontline teams that support those services to spend more time with our residents rather than doing a lot of the administrative work, then that alleviates a lot of challenges and ensures that our residents are getting sort of that warm interaction with our teams that they need and the support that they need to apply or receive those services. Stress testing new ideas. This is a great one. We all love to argue with the chatbot. Our team, we will pose it questions, then ask it to pick our work apart. So it's a fun one where we use that as sort of like an initial validating tool. And then lastly, and I think the one that we're all very familiar with, right, is building knowledge bases. Right now, we're working on a use case where we're trying to build knowledge bases per department so that ultimately we can provide department employees and senior leadership in those departments an AI assistant that knows their business and knows the characteristics of their department. So it's really just exciting stuff. And I'll leave it here and I'll say that the most optimistic part of this work for us is the idea that these capabilities are layered on every day. We wake up every morning and Claude does something new. We wake up every morning and Microsoft, and we're a Microsoft shop as well. Microsoft has layered on a new feature to a service. Let's push these tools as far as we can to augment our work so that we can ultimately better serve our communities and wear sort of the public sector AI Iron Man suit of armor in the service of our residents and the services that they need. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you so much. And I am going now to add to the screen. I am returning to Davyd and give me a sec. Okay, if you, Davyd and Harrison, can turn, okay, yes, turn off cameras. Thank you so much. So I will put all three on screen. Okay. There are a few questions already in the chat. I just would like to take a moment to share the results of the poll, okay? Because I think that's interesting to know now where we are regarding our participants' expectation. I mean, we are the participants. I think we all are the participants, speakers and attendees. So the first one is regarding the level of experience, because this is one of our challenges. We are creating a space meant for different levels of expertise and interest. So, but I would say that this is a strong majority of people that is using it regularly, which is, I think, it's something very interesting for us. The second question is about the type of tasks, they would like to find information for or tips for. And I think that's very interesting because there are the drafting, editing, summarizing, like the basics, Gen AI tasks, but also there's a lot of interest in research and information and brainstorming, planning on prototyping, which I think that take us to a different level of what things, we can expect to teach or to find expert here and experiences and cases, those were Jorge, prototyping and all, I think in all the cases in all the states. And then we have a question about the biggest challenge, okay? And as you can see, the most frequent is trusting or validating outputs. I think that's something very interesting, followed by knowing how to write effective prompt. But the idea of how we validate the output, that's something that's so important in the public sector. This is something that some people who is not the public servant cannot understand, because all public servant has the responsibility, the burden of the public good. They cannot make mistakes sometimes. Mistakes are very, very expensive in the public sector. And the other question is, what do you like to see? Real public sector examples, learning reusable, understanding risks and responsibilities. So I think that's very interesting because one of the challenges we have here, this is a challenge, but a huge, huge strength, is that we are creating a space that is interstates, inter-communities, inter-cities, because you all have been part of, learning communities of practices, but they are usually internal. So now we are attempting to create one that goes towards states. So I think that's a challenge. So I just wonder what, and it's a question for you all three, what would make a collaborative space like this truly valuable for you and your teams? That's something I would like to know, so we can create, a better space. And if you feel like this is a question that worth it answering, we can go with that. And after that, I will open to all the questions we have in the chat.
I guess I'll jump in.
Okay, perfect.
We were all the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other to see who's going to go first. So I think establishing communities of practice outside of organizations is really important. I think for us, I'm really excited to see the lab format. I think if it's a sort of very informal way that we can all share what we're doing. We don't get a lot of chance to talk shop with each other. We're usually sort of locked in our organizations serving our residents. So a lot of the work that we've done has been inspired by other um, by other municipalities and by other organizations. And it's just great to see, because not only is the technology changing so fast, um, the way that we're all using it is changing as well. So I think in terms of setting up that community practice and making the space productive, at least I definitely see it as a session where we can just bring our ideas, get hands on keyboard, share screens, and work out a problem together. I think if I'm showing up to one of these prompting labs, I'd show up with a problem statement like, hey, I'm trying to solve this, or I'm stuck here, and how can we do it? And then more broadly, I think having some sort of way to asynchronously communicate with each other throughout a period, like, I don't know, like a Discord server or a Slack channel or something like that, that folks can share over time, I think would also be pretty great.
Hey, thank you so much. David, Harrison, something to add?
Yeah, I'll jump in. One of the things that I'm really looking for, and our CIO has actually talked about this, and I think he's completely right. Finding those, we have a fair number of repetitive tasks, and I say mundane, and I don't mean unimportant when I say mundane. All right. We have a lot of things that we have to do as government employees, so creating artifacts and documentation, all the things that we need to make sure that uh, you know, we're doing our jobs right and that our organizations are running correctly. But what are those things that we can find that are not consequential decisions? Right? We still need a human in the loop, but we're not making consequential decisions. We're doing the things that can be defined as check the boxes sometimes, right? But we have to do them. They are important. And if we can get those out of the way, we now can really reach the high value work that we actually do. And our CIO talks a lot about field work, getting closer to our constituents, because we automate a lot. We've been doing this for a while now, right? We're automating so that people don't have to, you know, find a person to actually solve their problem. And if we can actually take care of 80 or 90% of that, or 70%, whatever the number is, more than we do today, there's that group on the other end that still doesn't have access the way we would like. But if we're freeing up time to the other things, now we can do the field work where we're reaching more and more constituents, quite often the constituents that are more marginalized uh, from getting to these services than they were before. So I'm excited about looking at use cases that are really looking at that kind of thing. You know what? This is important, but I found a way to get it done without spending 5 hours a week. Now I spend 30 minutes a week. The work is as good. Maybe it's better, right? Can't be worse. It's got to be as good or better. But now I took those extra 4 hours that I have. I didn't go home early. I don't know. I don't think any of us are doing that, right? But I found this other really high value work that I'm getting because I identified the right use case. Jorge was talking about that a lot. We got to identify the right use cases. Don't apply it to everything. Doesn't belong on everything. But where does it apply, and where does that gain us value?
Hey, thank you so much. Harrison, I don't know if something else you'd like to add?
The one just kind of piggyback I'll add, and why I think spaces like this are great, you know, where they're bringing multiple public sector orgs together or are happening within your own organization, is that there's a lot of ways in which these types of tools and systems can enable folks to be creative and experiment and try and find some of those, you know, high valuable use cases that Davyd was just referring to. And having spaces like this to be able to surface those ideas and connect ideas across agencies, organizations, help kind of plant different sparks in different places is, I think, one of the really exciting pieces of this technology. For so many folks, you know, public, private organizations, this is still a learning curve for a lot of folks, right? As these tools and technologies continue to change. And I think that kind of cross-agency, cross-org opportunity to share is just really a generative, no pun intended, generative aspect for the group. So echo everything Davyd said and Jorge.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a question / comment by Somini. And she says, I like the way many of you share that was not actually prompting that has been the big win. Are folks automating workflows to help make their lives easier, to use such chatbots to answer questions from the general public, writing reports, etc.? Did the pilot include some metrics around showcasing the use cases types? That's the question. And I need to say that our second session in the Prompting Lab is exactly about workflows. And Deborah Stein, who is going to run the session, is here. So Deborah, if you can unmute yourself and turn off your camera, we'd love to answer from you directly.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'll be with you like next week talking about daily workflows. So I'm not an IT person. I'm just a regular person like all of you who spend time in government. But I do use these AI tools every day for different activities. And I really found interesting the survey results. I actually did screenshots of them. So like one of them was, what task are you most interested in using prompting for? It was public communications, drafting, summarizing documents, research, information synthesis, and brainstorming. So I did plan to cover all of those. I don't see the other here. I don't see what the content was, but I'm sure I will hear what it is. But if you have other things that you'd like to add, I will make sense. The main thing, the main general point I want to get across that has, I think, has really changed since we first started is learning to use Gen AI tools not just as another version of Google, but instead as a strategic thinking partner. And that's what comes into brainstorming and other things. Because oftentimes I find like, when you're in government, you might be like the only person or you're the expert or whatever it is in something. And it's really good to have somebody to think things through. And that to me is like the next level of Gen AI applications is when people can move from one thing to another for their daily activities. I'll also be addressing a lot of the things in question 4, which was your biggest challenges about trusting and validating outputs, writing effective prompts, um, and that is also kind of a really important aspect. Then also learning reusable prompting techniques, understanding risk and responsible use. So I'll be covering all those. Of course, I only have so much time to do them, so it'll be very rapid. But I just want, and you should feel free that if there's other topics that you would like me to address in the day-to-day workflow thing, put them into the chat and I will um, get them. But the other thing I wanted to mention, which I think came up from Jorge, that I think is really interesting is these tools will also allow us to do things that we could not do before. Like I just produced as for a client a report about the use of waste heat from AI data centers for public good things, as opposed to just going to the atmosphere. Well, I'm doing this for a nonprofit. It's in Appalachia. Uh, I would like to produce an infographic. Now, do I have the ability to produce an infographic? No, but can I put it in a tool and magically get one within like 5 minutes? Yes. And so I also want you to think about those things that not only help with the things we're doing today, but things that could make what we do for the public better. So with that, I hope all of you will join me. I believe it's next week, and I'll cover those topics.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you so much. You have an amazing session, I know. So I have a question by Matt. And he says, have any here used the readiness assessment framework with AI or for other emerging technologies? And I am opening this question to our host, or if
Yeah, I'll jump in here if you want. And I see this I see this question two ways. The one, if we're talking about the work suite, um, we did our readiness assessment essentially through the pilot and through all the data we gathered and evaluated that to see actually where we were. For things outside of the actual work suite, we have an evaluation process. We have solution engineers. Every project that comes in is reviewed by them. They have criteria. I think Utah, by the way, Christian Napier, I think he released what they did, which actually is a really good. We're actually looking at their evaluation process to see if we reform ours or not. But we review everything that comes in. The solution engineers go through. It's mainly bounced against the NIST framework for understanding security, bias, accuracy, all those things. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but maybe Harrison or Jorge have something.
Yeah, so on our end, we have a internal advisory group that gets some visibility into the use cases that are coming in. And that group has a way of evaluating in terms from a business value perspective, from an impact perspective. We also have our own internal process where security gets some visibility into that use case early on, right? That's a critical component is the most stressed out people in your organization are the cybersecurity folks. Don't create more stress for them. Bring them in early, bring them in often, right? And there's a lot that we do to make sure that there's visibility into the use cases. But on a tactical level, the evaluation the rubric that we apply begins in a human-centered design approach. So when our team, which is comprised of our enterprise architect and myself, so we have sort of the pseudo architecture product focus, right? When we get in with a department who needs us to take a look at a process, we're, as we are going, validating the effectiveness and the impact of that use case with them in the room, right? It helps us identify those opportunities. So like when I mentioned earlier that the more aligned we are to a business case, the more success we will see. We want to make sure that not only are we getting our team's visibility in from the technical side, especially through security, but we're also ensuring that the use case that we're working on has the value that the folks expect, and that it's addressing those those concerns or those challenges. We have, the council itself also has a scoring criteria for them. We like that too, because as you can imagine, in a county of more than 25,000 employees, get a lot of use cases, get a lot of ideas from our teams. So we want to be able to surface those rapidly, and that's how we do it. And then we sort of work our way down, and then our team takes a more tactical approach, working our way up.
Only thing that I'll add from my end is that Pennsylvania, similarly to both of the examples just given, has our process for funneling intake and looping in a lot of the key stakeholders that we want to have extra visibility. We also incorporate ideas from the NIST RMF, and to the extent the question is coming from, what are maybe external pieces you can look to, I think that is a great kind of foundational resource to help inform some of your approach.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there's time for a few more questions. I have a question that goes in the same direction of the previous one, but it's a different approach. That's from Jesse, and asking, has anyone put together a cost-benefit model to better understand cost saving associated specifically with automating workflows and leveraging AI for redundant administrative tasks? Not sure if anyone has been done.
So for us, in terms of cost savings, that's something that we do early on in the life cycle of our work. And again, not to keep hitting the design sprint, human-centered design drum as much, but in our sprints with our teams, when we map their process out, we also identify the time cost for each step along that process, so that once we get to the end and we've found a solution and we've implemented it, we have this benchmark that we can say, okay, if it's saving our teams X time, then that means it's saving X money. Also for us, we view sort of our work through the lens of AI first, not not bolting on AI to an existing solution or incorporating AI into an application, from the start, but what can we do with an LLM at the core? What can we do with an AI at the core? How much can we get done? And a lot of that leads to incredible levels of process reengineering that we want to make sure that we capture near the end, right? That we want to capture those metrics. So at the beginning, we ask them how long it takes them to do everything, basically, and we walk through that journey with them. And then at the end, we see sort of those time savings, the cost savings, and most importantly, right, the system savings. It's not unreasonable that in the next 5 or 10 years, large legacy systems or large, systems that we all depend on, that we all know our industry partners, are replaced by more of a integration AI solution, right? So we have to factor in sort of the infrastructure savings as well, the licensing savings and all that. So we like to look at it sort of comprehensively, but again, starting with our customer, starting with the resident or the employee.
Yeah, and we actually, this has evolved for us. When we started, we were much more risk focused. That's where we started, right? Because we didn't know enough, right? And so we only have so many resources to actually address everything that's coming at us, right? As I think Harrison and Jorge both talked about, every week we have something new to look at, right? And consider. So we were very risk focused to start out, but we have evolved to the point where now, when we get a activity or a project or a program that someone wants to bring in, that's now part of the first questions. What's the value you think you can get from this? What do we need to measure 3 months, 6 months from now to understand? And we had one really good use case that was talked about in public. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but you can probably find it out there, where we actually worked on a call center that had massive reduction in calls, because 90% of the questions that come in, right, are repeatable, and it's an easy answer. Let's get them out. And this goes back to what I was saying before. And now those call center people are dealing with people that have problems that we can't resolve with an easy answer. And we're getting to those constituents. So the value there, the ROI, it can be hard to measure in some. In some, it's a little easier. Okay, you can assign how much time am I taking of my constituents' time, right? And we gave Coloradans 10,000 minutes back a month because of this app. There's a real value there. You may not be able to assign an exact number unless if you say, well, Coloradans' time is worth $20 an hour. I don't know, $100 an hour, whatever number you want to assign to it. You could call that an ROI that way if you want to measure it. But just the time alone that we are answering questions or helping people very quickly and easily is an interesting way to look at it as well.
Thank you so much, David. That's amazing. I think there's a question for Harrison in particular that I think we can have a time to answer. It's about the pilot you mentioned. It says, I'm curious, how do you convince colleagues to see if this technology would make their work easier, efficient, rather than a burden? If yes, how? We have explored the application of chatbots for Q&A from documents such as employee handbooks, and that was one of the challenges I noticed.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And right, there isn't a one size fits all, I think, approach to this. A lot of teams are different, the use cases are different, the types of tools that they might have available are different. A few things that I think have continually worked well, and I appreciate Jorge, continuing to reference, human-centered design and being upfront on the problem project scoping. I think that's really essential to off the bat, aligning that you're bringing users into the process, you're understanding if the use cases that you're trying to explore actually are meeting the needs and the pain points of the organizations and teams and what they're trying to solve. And, if there's a lot of investment in an AI use that is kind of, not really solving core friction points or functions for a team, it's just going to get a lot less, engagement and buy-in. And that'd be true if that was AI or other types of technology solutions, right? So I think, being very discreet on that problem solution framing, trying to bring folks into the process, look for opportunities, whether it's in these types of pilots or other ways, to source ideas for use cases amongst folks who are touching the work. I think all of those, will help set you up for success, but it definitely isn't, a one size fits all. And there can be different technology or team dynamics that, you have to figure out what makes sense in that case.
Hey, thank you so much. Before we end, just a few announcements. The first of all is something technical. Once you enroll to the series, when you register to a series, you're automatically enrolled to all the sessions in the series. So you don't need to re-register. Okay, you are supposed to receive an automatic email from Zoom with the next sessions, and that it's supposed to go directly to your calendar. We are fixing it. I think it's going to work. The second thing is that we have planned once a month an office hours session in which you bring your questions and an expert will answer. I mean, really good expert. Next one is Davyd Smith on January 30. So that's a different kind of a space. So you bring your question, your doubt, and we answer together in the session. The other thing I wanted to mention is that next session is next Friday. It's on the 23rd, and it's the session by Davyd. And you can expect a different newsletter only for the Prompting Lab, in which we will be presenting all the content from the session, other news, etc., separate from the regular InnovateUS newsletter, because it's a different kind of space. So having said that, it has been a pleasure, and we are really excited to make this work. Please feel free to contact us anytime with any, where is open hours? Open hours will be at exactly the same time, and we are planning once a month, okay? So that's announced on our website as a regular workshop. We'll say office hours led by, in that case, it's Davyd on January 30, and it's Jorge on February 13. This is what I remember by heart at this point. So more than happy to answer any questions on those, and so grateful to Jorge, Davyd, and Harrison for doing this first session. So here we are. Here we go. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. Closing the session.